Now we're going to solve literal equations. We have to first look and see what variable we're actually solving for. So it tells us we're going to solve for x, which means the m and the b are going to have to be moved, but remember I have to get rid of the b first. So it's being added. I want to do the opposite. So I subtract b from each side. So I get y minus b equals mx. Remember, still solving for the x, I'm going to divide each side by m, which gives me y minus b divided by m equals x. Remember, when we're solving literal equations, just because there's a lot of variables, you treat it the same way if they were all numbers. So if that were a plus 7 instead of plus b, you would subtract 7 from each side. And we want to make sure we do that whether it's a variable or a number. Number 23, we're solving for x, which means the 10y needs to be moved first. It's being added, so we're going to use the opposite operation. So we subtract 10y from each side. We get 5x equals 30 minus 10y. Remember, the 30 does not have a y, so we cannot subtract the 10 from the 30. And then at this step, we want to divide everything by 5. You could leave it 30 minus 10y over 5, but if you notice, 5 will go into 30 and 10 evenly, so I'm going to simplify this as much as it can be. 30 divided by 5 is 6, and 10 divided by 5 is 2. So my answer will be x equals 6 minus 2y. Remember, it's negative because we had a negative 10y right here. For 24, we're solving this literal. We're solving for the y variable. So I'm going to subtract 2x from each side. So I'll be left with 12y equals 24 minus 2x. Remember, I'm solving for y, so I'm going to divide everything by 12. You can put this in simplest form if you want to. 24 divided by 12 is 2, so 2y. Or I'm sorry, that's not a y, that is 24. So 24 divided by 12 is 2, and then 2 divided by 12 leaves me with 1/6 x. It would be acceptable if you left it y equals 24 minus 2x divided by 12. This last step just puts it in simplest form. For 25, we're solving for the variable x again. Notice I have this division bar. I'm dividing everything by c. So the first thing I need to do in the equation is multiply both sides of my equation by c. So I'm left with ax plus by, and then when I have c times d, it's just cd. Still solving for x, so I need to get rid of this by. I'm going to subtract by from each side. So I have ax equals cd minus by. And then get x by itself, you divide everything by a. So my final answer will be c times d minus b times y all over a. For 26, we have volume equals length times width times height. So I want to solve for my width. And I notice that length and height are both being multiplied at the same time, so we got to do the opposite. I can divide each side by L times H. And if I do that, I get V divided by L times H equals W. That'll be my final answer. Finally, if I'm solving for A, I want to add B to each side. So I get G plus B equals CA. And then divide each side by C. So my final answer will be G plus B divided by C equals A. For 28, we're solving for R. R is right here. So I'm going to start by subtracting 2D from each side. Now x and d are not the same variable, so I have 4x minus 2d equals negative 4r. To get r by itself, I want to divide each side by negative 4. And again, I can put this in simplest form. So 4 divided by negative 4 gives me negative 1x. And then a negative 2 divided by a negative 4 gives me a positive 1/2 d. That's going to equal r. For 29, I have a equals b plus h divided by 2, and it says that we are solving for h. First thing I have to get rid of is the 2 in the denominator, so I'm going to multiply each side by 2. So I get 2a equals b plus h, and then to get h by itself, I want to subtract b from each side. So my final answer will be 2a minus b equals h. This next section of the review, we're going to solve inequalities as well as graph inequalities. So notice the only difference from the first section that we did in this one, the first section was equations, meaning it had an equal sign and exactly one answer, where this section we're going to have less than, greater than, less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to. And when we solve, we're going to have a set of answers. So for 30, we start with the same way. We're going to subtract 7 from each side. We're left with negative 2x is less than 2. We divide each side by negative 2, and when we divide by a negative, this is our big flashing warning sign. We must flip our inequality. So x will, instead of less than, now be greater than negative 1. Because it is just a greater than sign, it gives me an open dot, and the numbers that are greater than negative 1 are to the right. For number 31, we want to add 3 to each side. So I'll get 2x is greater than 8. Okay, divide each side by 2. Because 2 is a positive number, we do not have to flip our sign. So x will be greater than 4. Again, it's greater than, so when I get ready to graph, it'll be an open dot because it is not equal to. And I'm looking for numbers that are bigger than 4, so that'll be to the right. Okay. For number 32, we're going to start by subtracting 1 from each side. So we get k divided by 2 is greater than negative 4. Then we're going to multiply each side by 2. So k will be greater than negative 8. I did not have to flip my sign because even though I multiplied, it was a positive number, so it could stay the same. It is just greater than, so I'll use an open dot, and greater than numbers are to the right. For 33, I'm going to start by subtracting 13 from each side. Notice I have negative 17 minus 13, which gives me 5y is greater than or equal to negative 30. When I divide each side by 5, I don't have to worry about flipping my sign. It's positive, but my answer becomes negative 6. Now notice when I get ready to graph this, it is greater than or equal to, so the dot that goes on my number line will be closed because it is included, and the values are larger than negative 6. Although what I've graphed here was positive 6, so I need to fix that. Negative 6, and we're looking at numbers larger than negative 6. Now I have some options when I get ready to solve number 34. I can distribute the negative 5 first. I'm going to actually start by dividing by negative 5. But if I divide by a negative, I have to flip my sign. So it goes from x plus 1 is less than or equal to x plus 1 is greater than or equal to 9. I'm going to subtract 1 from each side. So I have x is greater than or equal to 8. When I get ready to graph this, come out to 8. Okay. Close dot. And it will be greater than or equal to this 8. For 35, the first thing I'm going to do is multiply each side by 2. So I'll be left with 3x plus 15 is less than negative 6. I'm going to subtract 15 from each side. So I'll have 3x is less than negative 21. Divide each side by 3. I don't have to worry about flipping the sign because the 3 is positive. And I get x is less than negative 7. So come out to negative 7 because it is just less than, not equal to. It's an open dot, and the numbers that are less than go to the left. For number 36, in order to solve, the first thing I want to do is multiply each side by 2. So I get negative 3x plus 6 is going to be greater than or equal to 24. I will then subtract 6 from each side. So I'll be left with negative 3x is greater than or equal to 18. Divide each side by negative 3, and when I divide by a negative 3, I have to flip my sign so it becomes less than or equal to negative 6. So I come to negative 6. I use a closed dot because it's equal to. I'm looking for my numbers that are less than. For number 37, it's going to take a little bit of extra work from us here. I need to start by distributing my 2. So I get 4n plus 2n plus 2 is greater than 38. Then I'm going to combine these to get 4n plus 2n is 6n plus 3 is greater than 38. Subtract 3 from each side. And I will get 6n is greater than 35. If you notice, I made a big mistake here. 4n plus 2n is 6n, but I should have used plus 2. Instead, I used plus 3, so that's going to change my answers just a little bit. It is going to make them a little bit happier, though, so that's good. So 6n plus 2 is greater than 38. I want to subtract 2. Now I'm going to get a nice clean answer. 6n is greater than 36. And when I divide each side by 6, I'll get n is greater than 6. It's going to be an open dot because it is just greater than, and we'll be going to the right. For 38, we want to combine like terms, so I'm going to add 2n to each side, which I'll get 8n minus 10 is less than 6. And add 10 to each side, so I'll have 8n is less than 16. Divide each side by 8, n will be less than 2. So when I graph, come out to positive 2, the open circle, because it is not equal to, it goes to the left. For 39, I need to start by distributing the 2 to each side. So I have 2x plus 10 is greater than 4x plus 4. I want to get like terms on the same side. So I'm going to subtract the 4x from each side, where I'll have negative 2x plus 10 is greater than 4. Subtract 10 from each side, where I'll have negative 2x is greater than negative 6. Remember, I'll be dividing by a negative 2 here. And when I divide by a negative, I must flip my sign, so instead of greater than, it becomes less than. So x is less than 3. It's not equal to, so it's an open dot, and numbers that are less than go to the left. For 40, I want to make sure I start by distributing. Well, I have two options. I can distribute the negative 4, or you can subtract 5 from each side. So I'm going to do that. I'm actually going to distribute and subtract at the same time. So I'll get negative 4x plus 8 is greater than or equal to 4. And all I did was I distributed the 4 to both parts, and then I subtracted 5 from each side of the inequality. What I want to do is subtract 8 from each side, and I'll get negative 4x is greater than or equal to negative 4. Divide each side by negative 4. When I divide by negative 4, though, remember I have to flip my sign, so it becomes x is less than or equal to positive 1. So come out to positive 1, be a closed dot because it's less than or equal to. The less than numbers go to the left. And if you look at this last one in this section, there's a lot of things happening. So I want to try and do as much as I can in this first step. I want to distribute the 4. I'm also going to go ahead and distribute the negative 2. So I'll have 4y plus 4, then I just keep the 8, so plus 8 is less than or equal to negative 2y plus, it would be actually minus 6. At this point, I can start combining like terms. So the 4 plus 8 will give me 4y plus 12 is less than or equal to negative 2y minus 6. I'm going to add 2y to each side, which I will get. So when I do this, I will get 6y, oops, I'm sorry. I'll get a 6y plus 12 is less than or equal to negative 6. Then I want to subtract 12 from each side, so 6y will be less than or equal to negative 18. Divide each side by 6. I don't have to worry about flipping my sign because 6 is positive, so y is less than or equal to negative 3. Come out to negative 3, this will be a closed dot, and it'll move to the left because we are less than. In this last section, we have a bunch of word problems, so what I want to do is create the equations or the inequalities that go with them, and then solve. So 4 less than the product of 3 and a number. Well, product means multiply, so I'm going to multiply 3 and x, and 4 less than that means subtract 4. Is always means equals, so equals negative 25. At this step, I want to add 4 to each side. This will be my equation. So if I add 4, I will get 3x equals negative 21. Divide each side by 3. My solution will be negative 7. The next one says $13 more than twice the cost of a video game. So 13 more than means add. Twice the cost, 2x, is 67. Remember, is means equals all the time. So there's my equation. To solve, I'll subtract 13 from each side. So I get 2x is equal to 54. Divide each side by 2. And the cost of the video game will be $27. Just type that into your calculator and find the answer. For 44, we get 6 less than 5 times a number is the same as 14 times a number increased by 17. So we just start in the order that we hear. 6 less than 5 times a number. 5 times a number is 5x. 6 less than that means minus 6. Then we see the word is, so I'm going to put an equal sign. It's the same as 14 times a number, so 14x increased, adding by 17. There's my equation. Now all I have to do is solve the equation. So I'm going to subtract 5x from each side. Keep things nice and positive. Get negative 6 equals 9x plus 17. Well, the next step is that I'm going to subtract 17 from each side. So I get negative 23 equals 9x. Well, I want to divide each side by 9, and it is acceptable to keep this as a fraction, negative 23 over 9. If you prefer to make this a decimal, it will be 2.56, because it'll be 5 repeating, so it'll be negative 2.56. But if you want to leave it as this fraction, I encourage you to do so. For 45, we have 3 times Sam's age decreased by 5 is equal to 12 increased by twice his age. So again, we just want to follow in the same order that we see here. 3 times Sam's age will be 3x, decreased by 5, so subtract 5, is equal to, so equals, 12 increased, so 12 plus twice his age, 2x. So there will be my equation. Then I just want to solve. Let's start by subtracting 2x from each side. So x minus 5 will equal 12. I want to add 5 to each side. So Sam's age is 17 years. For 46, having lost your cell phone, your parents are making you pay for your own. You find a phone where the monthly fee is $18, text messaging is free, and you're charged 12 cents per minute when you make phone calls. If your bill for the first month is $29.52, how many minutes did you use for phone calls? So we know that we have a monthly fee of $18. In addition to that, I must pay 12 cents per minute, so 0.12x. And I know that my bill this month was equal to $29.52. So all I want to do here is start solving. So I'm going to subtract 18 from each side. When I do that, I get 0.12x equals 1152. Then I want to divide each side by 0.12. You just put this straight into your calculator, and when you divide 1152 by 12 cents, you get 96. So you talk 96 minutes. For these last few, you're just creating inequalities. So there are no fewer than 86 people at the party. There can be 86, but no fewer, which means that x will be greater than or equal to 86. At most, 24 students can be in the lab. So 24 is the greatest number. And we can have 24 students, it just can't go over that. So it'll be x is less than or equal to 24. No more than 10 people attended the meeting, which means x was less than 10. And the capacity exceeds, meaning it's higher than 150, so x is greater than 150. These last few are just the word problems that go along with inequality. Again, we're going to set them up and then we're going to solve. So the product of -3 and a number, x, increased by 7 plus 7 is at most, okay, so the highest number will be -11. At most means that is less than. We get ready to solve this. Subtract 7 from each side. We get -3x is less than -18. We want to divide each side by -3. And for my solution, it'll be, when we had to divide by -3, we have to be careful. Negative, divide by negative, we flip our sign. So instead of less than, it becomes x is greater than 6. If I were going to write this in context, I would say that the answer is any number greater than 6. For 52, we have 7 increased by 5 times a number. So 7 plus, I'm sorry, 7 increased by 5 times a number, 7 plus 5x, exceeds, so is greater than -3. As we get ready to solve this, I'm going to subtract 7 from each side. So I get 5x is greater than -10. We divide each side by 5. Since 5 is a positive number, I do not have to worry about flipping my sign, so x will be greater than -2. So for my answer, the answer is any number greater than -2. Okay. 53, the cost of renting a hot dog cart is $75. The hot dogs may be purchased for $6 per pound. If the budget for the party is at most $120, how many pounds of hot dogs can be purchased? So we know we have to pay $75 just to get the cart, and then we pay $6 per pound for hot dogs. The budget is at most, so this must be less than or equal to 120. Then we just want to solve this. So I'm going to subtract 75 from each side. If I do this, 11, I get 45. So 6x is less than or equal to 45. We divide by 6, and I'll get my answer to be X is less than or equal to 7.5. Now you have to be careful here. If they let you buy a half pound of hot dogs, then this will work. If they do not, then you need to round down, because if I round up to 8 pounds of hot dogs, I'm not going to have enough money to pay for it. So just know the context of if they're willing to sell half pounds or not. So when I'm writing this, you can purchase or you can buy 7.5 pounds or less of hot dogs. For 54, at the bowling alley, the shoe rental costs $3 and each game costs $4. So we have to pay $3 for our shoes. Every game that we play is $4. If you do not want to spend more than $25, so this has to be less than 25, can it be equal to? Yes, we just can't spend more than that. How many games would you bowl? So we're going to start by subtracting 3 from each side. So we get 4x is less than or equal to 22. When I divide each side by 4, I actually get x is less than or equal to 5.5. But if you're at the bowling alley and you start half a game, they're not going to let you finish without paying for the full game. So in this case, I don't leave at 5.5. I've got to round down, where x will be less than or equal to 5. So in context, you can bowl 5 games or less. Finally, you've been searching for a car loan and have finally narrowed down your loan options to 2 choices. Loan option A requires $5,000 down payment plus $350 monthly. Option B requires $8,000 down payment plus $250 monthly. We have to be careful of what it's asking us here. At what point does option B become cheaper than option A? So if we want option B, which is on this side, to be less than option A, the sign that actually goes there is greater than, because option A was listed first. Well, at this point, all we want to do is solve this equation. So I'm going to subtract 250x from each side. I'm left with 5,000 plus 100x is greater than 8,000. I want to subtract 5,000 from each side. And then I'll have 100x is greater than 3,000. At this point, I want to divide each side by 100. So x will be greater than 30 months. So option B becomes cheaper after 30 months.